Let's go. And you can interact in the chat whenever you want, and we'll take the.
She might see this on the internet at some point, but we very much appreciate the support and the help in doing so. So my name is Alex Lillo. I'm a PhD candidate, part-time prof at the University of Ottawa. Thomas, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Okay, yeah, I'm a prof at University of Ottawa, civil law section, and I teach mostly environmental law and international environmental law.
I guess I could add that we are the recipient. We hold a chair in teaching innovation at the civil law section of the University of Ottawa. That's pretty much new. So that's one of our first talk under this chair. So today we are going to go hopefully on a small adventure, and we want to talk about pervasive games and how they can be used in law school. How can pervasive game can contribute to making teaching more engaging and more stimulating in law school? So without further ado, we're just a bit curious to know where you're from, where you're located right now. And it's an opportunity for us to tell you, you can use the chat. Please make sure that you use the to everyone when you type in, so everybody can see. Otherwise, maybe you can send a direct message to Thomas and I if there is something very specific. And yeah, feel free to interact, ask questions. We don't want to be too formal, so it's an occasion to have a conversation rather than a formal discussion. Oh, salut Adrien, salut de Moncton. Queens, Montreal, Windsor. All right, so we have, I believe, eastern part of Canada that is overrepresented, but we have a bit of a different group. So that's great. That's great. Thomas, can you go to the next slide, maybe?
Yeah. Oops.
I should say also that, well, I mean, you are going to hear it, but we are mainly Francophone. So if you have questions in French, we are happy to answer any questions in French. Our goal today is to share and to identify some of the educational purposes of pervasive games. And we are actually going to explain what is a pervasive game as well. To recognize and hopefully overcome the challenges that are associated with that kind of teaching method, teaching strategy, and also to gather a few tips and tricks that we have experienced over the past few months on how to create and implement pervasive games in higher education, but more specifically in law schools. A quick overview of the outline. So we are going to define what is a pervasive game, look at the creation of such tools, and see how they can be implemented. Thomas?
Yeah, so we already introduced ourselves, but maybe a bit more context of why we use game-based learning, when did we start, where does it come from? So I started to teach at the civil law section in Ottawa in 2017. And to be honest with you, I was hired to teach environmental law, and I never took a class before. I never teach this topic before, never took a class, just water law with one of the professors at Ottawa actually. But since the beginning, I wanted, and it's also because I was very influenced by my colleague Alex that we met at this time, and we started to work very closely like a year ago, a year before I started. And then when I had to teach a class, first I was like, how am I going to teach this? I never took a class. I don't know how it works. International environmental law is so broad, and you have some manuals, but you have one very good in Quebec actually, but it's very difficult to know like where to start, how to teach it. So basically the idea was to teach it the way I learned it, which is like by doing it on the field and mostly through international negotiation. So the first year I started, we decided to design simulations of international negotiations. So we designed, since then we have designed several simulations. The first one we did was on climate change. So basically our students are representing regions of the world, and they need to come up to an agreement during 2 hours, during a period of 2 hours during a class. So the two logos you have at the top of the slide, it's examples of the logo we created for the simulation, because year after year, we just add things to the simulation. And so the more we work on it, the more we want to make it more immersive for the students. So we add new elements, and the logos, banners, special powers are things we introduce to make it even more fun and entertaining for the student. And so we keep growing with these ideas and starting to go like to build new activities around using game-based learning. And we have a website now where we share all the tools, all the simulation we created. So you can visit it on Learning in Progress. And so this simulation were the first thing we started to do. But we also started to connect with other people in this field, in the field of game-based learning, where you don't have a lot of lawyers, to be honest. So it's really nice to go there, and people are really welcoming, and it's a really nice environment. And to give you an example, we went to a conference called Serious Play, and we were so inspired and influenced by the talks we saw there that we took some of the ideas we saw there. Like, for instance, organizing a game jam. A game jam is just an activity where you ask the participant to create a game from scratch. You just give them a topic and you ask them to create a game. And so we organized one in the law faculty. We gave the topic of social justice, and there are 24 hours to create a game. And I cannot tell you more about it, but it was like very impressive to see what the student came up with. Very, very innovative by some aspects. And I've never seen my student working so much, taking no breaks, not even asking to take breaks. They were just working for the whole time. We even needed like 2 hours to take a decision, and they were here, and they were trying the game of each team. So it was a really nice experience, and I think it's something we should develop in our law faculty. Last example of the things we do around game-based learning. Alex actually initiated a community of practice of professors from every faculty using game-based learning at the University of Ottawa. And this, after 1 year of existence, we came up with a small book with a cookbook of recipes of game-based learning, where we just share, and it's very modest, it's not big, but we just share some of the tools, activities that you can use, especially online with what is coming for the fall and the winter probably, using game-based learning in class. And also, one of the main reasons we use game-based learning in class, it's also because we are gamers and we love it, we enjoy it, and it's always very peaceful and calm and convivial. So that's also why we use a lot of games, and we try to do more and more actually. And so today we will present you one kind of activity we developed, and it's not simulations. It's very different from what we did with a simulation in international law, but I will come back to this. So first, some words about law and teaching. I'm part of the legal community, but I have to admit that law is still often taught in a very traditional way. Class are often very formal lectures with very few interactions. You might have questions from the teachers, but students might be too scared, too shy, or bored to answer. You know, like I guess you all know like this feeling where you're like, but I asked so many questions and nobody answered, nobody participated. But it's not only about asking the question. So the student might be too scared actually. The priority seems to be on the transfer of raw information. And so the challenge for the student is mostly to try to memorize the content and to learn all by heart. And the day of the exam, just to give it back and to make the teacher happy, showing that you understand and you memorize everything. So as you can imagine, it's not very stimulating for both the students and the teachers. And you also have to know that Alex and me, we were taught in France. So we have experienced a very traditional teaching of law, where you just need to write, you just need to learn, and to give it back the day of the exam. So experiential learning is still very rare in the classroom in law school. Even if you have some experiential learning, mostly as extracurricular activities, like we have like plenty of moot courts activities. And one excuse you might hear often to exclude experiential learning and this kind of simulation is that teacher will tell you that they need to pass on a lot of information. And by the way, information that will probably be outdated very fast, especially in law. So very quickly, what are the impacts for the students? Less engagement. Students focus on taking notes and they don't want to miss anything. So they will just focus on this, even record you and like hear it again at home and try to get more. A lack of autonomy. Students tend to learn the law in the book and maybe less practical stuff, and difficulties to link theory taught in class and practices. This is very paradoxical when you consider the skills lawyer must learn: research skills, interpretation and analytical skills, practical skills, especially about the implementation of law. These challenges are even more important to consider in the context of online teaching. It's even worse. I mean, you have the same challenges both in class and online, but online, if we do the same, it's even worse. Like for the student will be even more bored and they will just not listen to it. So basically we ask ourselves how to make legal education more relevant in the class we teach. So again, mostly environmental law and international law. And for this, to be honest, again, at the very beginning, it was really a bet to use games because we didn't have any studies of this. We didn't do any studies. It's just that we love game and we thought like it might be a really good way to learn. And I won't say more about this, even if you have a lot of research and experience confirming that game-based learning can be an interesting tool. And today we want to talk about one specific type of game, pervasive game. And to show you like the impact it can have, I want to share a video from our student. So spoiler alert, our student really enjoys this approach. And so to prove it scientifically, I have here 2 student testimonials. I'm kidding, because actually to make it scientific, we would have had to interview at least 3 students. But the truth is actually these 2 students insisted that we show their video today because they are very nice students. We couldn't say no. So I want to share the first video of our student about the class, about the experience we had in our class.
Participating in this class was a truly unique experience. I rarely experienced this learning approach in law school, and I will surely remember it for a long time. I definitely recommend this class to students who enjoy action, stunts, and unexpected turn of events. I am Camille Péloquin, 3rd year of law school.
I did not expect what happened during this course. It was quite an adventure. I mean, what would be your reaction if your professor was being kidnapped on the first class? As students, we had to step up to make sure that the class would go on. And at that point, we didn't know that it was only the beginning of an unexpected chain of events. I'm Charles Potier-Levasseur, 3rd year law school, and I endorse this message.
Okay. So let's go back to the presentation and we'll come back to what the students are talking about, like the kidnapping and stuff in the class. We'll come back to this and explain it in details. But first, Alex will tell you more about what is a pervasive game, so you could understand better what we try to implement.
All right. So first of all, we're just a bit curious to know if any of you has experienced, play, or even created a pervasive game in the past. Yeah, that's a good answer. Simulations could count eventually. Yes, I'm curious now. Escape rooms are a bit different. So let's hop into the actual definition or definitions. Okay, so unfortunately, as many concepts in law, pervasive games also have many definitions. So a bit of a snapshot are the three definitions right here. The first one is I would say, give the main takeaway of what a pervasive game is. So they are generally an activity that blur the boundaries between the game world and the real world, and where the game blends in with reality. If you look at the third definition, there is the input of technology. So if you decide to do a bit of research on this topic, you'll see that a big part of pervasive games are related to computer sciences. This is not what we're going to talk about today. It's mostly about this idea of having a game that fit in the everyday world. So maybe next slide, Thomas, please. Mm-hmm. So there is no consensus, but what we can say is that a game is being pervasive when it's going to bridge the digital and the real world. So in the gaming environment, we call that the magic circle. The magic circle is where the rules of the real world don't apply anymore, and you apply the rule of the gaming environment. A pervasive game is going to blur the line between fiction and reality. It's really this notion of doubt. You know, it's going to be engaging, it's going to be entertaining, but you're not sure if it's, if it's a game, if it's real or if it's not real. So it's this curiosity of knowing it could be possible and not being sure that it's actually fictitious. It also creates a scenario that can be played in a real world setting. So it takes the game outside of simply the game environment, and it's going to use obviously different media and technologies to do so. So a pervasive game is basically a game that is going to be capable of spreading widely within clusters, networks of people, but also within physical areas and environments.
Mm-hmm. And maybe to give more details about is it a simulation, is it escape room and stuff? I feel simulation, escape room, pervasive game, like you can define it very strictly, but and you will see it when we'll explain what we did in our class. You can mix all of these activities. Actually, you can have an escape room within a pervasive game. Pervasive game, that's also why it's kind of hard at the beginning to understand, because it's kind of like an umbrella game, and inside you can have other activities which can be like other type of games, so smaller stuff. But pervasive game is like more like the global stuff.
It's a big family of game. It's a big genre, if you want, of game. Next slide, and yeah, we touched a bit about that. So there are many different ways in which a pervasive game is going to use the real world space. So augmented reality is one. Pokemon Go can be considered as a pervasive game, although it uses a very unreal scenario. So you don't doubt it's fake, but its augmented reality can be used as a way of integrating a pervasive game in the real world space. Live action role-playing game like murder mysteries could be such, scavenger hunts, and alternate reality game. So I don't know if there are any Dungeons and Dragons amateurs here, but D&D is not necessarily a pervasive game, but it could be. It's not, because it uses a fake world, a world of fantasy with like all kind of powers, species. So it's not something that is real. But if you create a D&D campaign that is grounded into a real world, a realistic environment with realistic characters, then it could become a pervasive game, because the line between what is the gaming environment and what is the real world is being blurred. So one of the most famous type of pervasive games are alternate reality games. So you see quite a few of them on Twitter, for instance, and they are interactive and transmedia storytelling experiences that are going to use real world as a game platform to engage online with a large scale audience. So there are two examples here that maybe if you're interested, you can go see after. It's the game Halo 2 that did an alternate reality games back in the days. You would watch the teaser of the game. At the end, there is a real quick website appearing on the screen. It's ilovebees.com, and you go on this website, and it's kind of odd. Doesn't have anything to do with hello. It's a website about bees, honey, but it's the beginning of an alternate reality game. And some of the fans, they went all out. They went through the website. They found some information. They eventually had to go. They had to use GPS coordinate to go outside, and it was public phones, and they had to call. It was a crazy adventure. So it's something that is being used a lot by the industry as a marketing tool to get some visibility, but it's also something that is being used on social networks as an activity with like a lot of people. Thomas, do you want to touch real quick on the Stranger Things?
Yeah, and I would add that also, like, of course, it's marketing. You want your community to engage. You want them to be hyped about the new season coming or things like this. But sometimes I feel you also can dig other stories, other part of the story. You can so it can be used like as a way of making your universe broader. So Stranger Things, what they did is that before the new season, season 3, so they made a fake advertisement about the ice cream shop, and I don't know the TV show very, very well. I didn't finish the first season, but anyway. So you have this ad about the ice cream shop, and at the end you have a phone number, and it's it's like clicking like on an ad. Call this if you want to order, blah blah blah. And some people actually called, and when you call this number, you are actually, after some steps, you are hired by a special service where you work for to identify monsters and chase them, hunt them, basically. So you get into an adventure, and just because you did a number which was written like in a fake ad, so you can see here the border between real life and fiction is like completely blurred. I mean, it's not supposed to be a real number, but it is, and then there is a mission behind. And you have so many examples like this where you give like amazing problems to the community of fans, and sometimes you expect them to solve them in months or years, and it's actually weeks, if not days, because they just work like collaboratively, and it's just like so powerful. So and maybe you can start to see like the potential for education if you give like legal problem like this to students. If they're actually engaged with the material, they can go very far. And the idea is basically to try to take all the energies that you can see the teenagers, kids, or even adults, all the energies they are putting into resolving games and adventure like this in law.
All right. So what about pervasive games and higher education in an educational context? Well, as you might have guessed, there is a bit of adaptation that is needed to take this genre into law school, into your classroom. So we are going to hop in more specifically on that after, when we talk about the activity we created, but the key elements here are actually duo. So it's the duo fiction and reality, multimedia, transmedia, real world and game world, gamification and staging. So that's very much the important notions and concept to take away when it comes to pervasive games in an educational context. So its usefulness as an educational tool is that it can give a long-term perspective on an activity. And that's something we really wanted to explore with Thomas. Is most of our activities were, punctual. It was half an hour, sometime 2 hours, sometime 15 minutes. And we were curious, how can we make an activity that is going to be maybe, 3 classes, or maybe the summer, all the semester. So this model is very efficient when it comes to having a scenario that runs from class 1 to class 12. Because of this capacity, it creates links between the different classes, the different activities, the topics, or the concepts. So it's very relevant when you want to have a scenario ongoing over a long period of time. It also stimulates curiosity and interest. If students know there is something to look for and then everything might be a clue, then maybe they're gonna, look for it. Where is it? What could it be? So they're gonna be more engaged and more curious about the classroom material. And also, but that is a bit more general to game-based learning. It's a student-centered activity, and it fosters student autonomy as well. Unfortunately, there are some challenges ahead if you want to use pervasive games. It's not something that is part of the typical curriculum. So there is maybe a form of cultural barrier, especially for the educator that might have to put a bit more effort in creating the class and articulating all the different activities and scenario. We'll come back on this point. One other big problem is that the clue that you use to start the game, such as the number at the end of an advertisement, could go unnoticed. It could be completely ignored for various reasons. But then the good thing is you only need one curious person to give a phone call. And then, by the power of internet and the power of social interaction within the classrooms, well, you can get it started and keep it going. And the third, and I would say the biggest challenge here is you have to prepare the students, because they don't expect that usually that kind of activities. They're not used to that kind of teaching method. So how can you get them ready, without saying too much, because you still want them to have a bit of doubt regarding the ongoing situation. So basically the key challenge here is students need to expect the unexpected, and it's difficult. We can share two examples of what absolutely didn't work for us. So in the context of the stimulation of international negotiation we created a fake Twitter feed just to give the participants some information during the negotiations. At some point we said, maybe, if some of them are curious, we could give them, how can I say, an additional clue, or give them an insight. And basically here, this slide was integrated in the fake Twitter feed as an ad. And I put down my number, and I was expecting someone to text me. And if they would have texted me, I would have given them a clue, because like some of the team have powers. Each team don't know about the other powers, so that could have been a reward for being curious. But it didn't work. Like all the students saw the slide, but they didn't send a text. And the second one was even more far-fetched. So this also was a slide in the fake Twitter feed. And if you see on the left side of the screen, this is a Morse code. So if you basically comment dit Thomas, déchiffrer?
Decrypt it, no?
Yeah, if you decrypt the Morse code, it says the same that the previous slide. Text this message to this number, and obviously it didn't work. Although some students said, well, we did see it. We saw the Morse code, but we didn't really thought it was something. So in that sense, having the student prepared to see that kind of clues and having the student prepared to expect the unexpected is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, and for the record, like later on the session, we actually I put something, I put some Morse but it was really for fun, and then they were prepared. And they actually spent time translating it, or they were looking after every name of the character we had in another activity to see if there was not a clue. So when they are prepared, it's working very well.
I guess we already pretty much talk about that already, but yeah, we have a broad interest in all kind of game-based learning activities, whether simulation games, escape games, board games, gamification. Of course, we have a deep enjoyment for games, video games, but also, the one that have a mysterious aspect to them. So big fans of escape games here. I think we did almost all of them in Ottawa. We're guilty of that. I want confess to the success rate because I'm not very proud of this one, but still. And also the will to create a long-term activity. That was really something. How can we gamify, the course over the semester? And so we created the Mysterious Kidnapping of Professor B. So this is basically an alternate reality game-like activity with real-world interactions. So that's the pervasiveness and escape game component. So this is the activity we're going to use as an example to explain how to create and implement a pervasive game. But it's basically a big scenario with recurrent activities, whether crosswords, escape games over the course of the semester.
Yeah. So let's talk about the creation of the game and some of its key elements before I can show you a video of what the students saw in the first class. So for this type of games, the scenario is like is a key element, but it's also something that is very, very challenging to create. I would say it's one of the most challenging part. Right now with Alex, we are preparing for the fall and I don't know which version we are for the next scenario, but it's crazy how it evolves all the time. You need to change it a bit before you do the final version. So it can be very challenging, especially because we have no teaching in this field. However, I would say you have so many resources online. You have so many people who have done like manuals about this, how to write a good story. You have some people who have done a lot of theories about what is a good story, what do you need in a good story. So, and I would say also that the best inspiration you can get, it's very basic, I'm sorry, but it's just like all the readings you can do. Right now, Alex put me on he made me start to read like a manga, One Piece, which is actually one of the best manga I ever read. And it's a huge source of inspiration. The way the story is made, the characters, and so it's a good source of inspiration. So you have to be very prepared because once you start, you have to be sure of where you go. You can always make adjustments, especially with a pervasive game, depending on what the people would do. You can adapt it a bit, but it's good to have like your full scenario, like to anticipate and to be well prepared. So it will provide a context for the topic that you want to discuss in class. So basically the student will become part of some real cases. To give you an example, in our environmental law, our student had to review GMO authorization. They had to file an appeal on an existing case. In another class, we had students who, it was not part of the pervasive game, but we had students being engaged on a boat to go hunt Japanese whaling boats. So it can be, you can involve the student into real cases, and you make the cases not just a random case, but their case, and they need to come up with a solution. So it makes it a bit more dramatic, so you might get more engagement. And so, as you can see on the slide, it stimulates curiosity for the student because they might go deeper into the research and stuff. And if you ever saw like a moot court research during a year, you know, I've seen some, and it's also a source of inspiration because sometimes I've never seen my student do so much research to try to solve a fake case. It's a fake case, but they just spend so many hours to try to make it like to win. So here's what I can say. Yeah, and it will tie the element of the course. It's not really a course, it becomes like an adventure. So you will study the exact same topic that you would have studied, but you do it throughout a story and an adventure. So it makes it more relevant for the student because they feel they are part of the adventure actually. So now we want to share a sample of the story we had. So here is the first video that the students got during the first class.
Just to give a bit of context, so at the break.
I think it's explained, Alex. I think it's explained.
Okay.
No, I think. Huh?
Okay. Yeah, my bad.
Je vais bien m'en occuper de ce Burélie. Alors, Burélie, confortable? Mais arrête de brailler comme ça, comme un cochon. Ça ne rien. Qu'est-ce qu'il dit?
Allez!
Tu te tais. Tu pensais vraiment que tu pourrais continuer tes projets comme ça? Sans qu'on intervienne?
C'est pas ce que vous pensez.
Ah, c'est pas ce que je pense. Alors c'est quoi, Burélie? Qu'est-ce que tu regardes comme ça, hein?
Sac à dos! Sac à dos! Mon bureau est la clé! Mon bureau est la clé!
Qu'est-ce que tu nous as fait?
Okay, so it's basically what happened after the break during the first class. And I'll tell you a bit more about the scenario. Basically I'm calling the student during the class, and I had like I actually called the multimedia services of the university, so they took control over the computer and started the video. So students were like, what is going on? The lights were shut down, so it was a bit dramatic. And I'm telling them like backpack, because actually I left my backpack with some clues in it, because I suspected that I would be kidnapped for some reasons that are unknown at this point. And I'm asking the student to free me. And so the first step is to solve an escape game where they need to open my backpack. The first clue to open the first lock is the number of my office. And then inside the backpack, they have like 3 puzzles to solve, to open another box, and to find a device, to locate me, and to localize me, sorry, and to free me. And during all these activities, they were actually supervised by Alex, which is very important because if they get stuck, it's very bad. So he was here to help and to make it smooth.
If I may add something to real quick, this first activity was actually created to for the students to go through the syllabus and to get the different important takeaways from the syllabus. So the puzzle were related to the syllabus. And to answer Bruno, oh yeah, there you go, Thomas. Well,
yeah. So all the activities, all the puzzles were a way to get to know the syllabus and to get basic information. So where's my office? Where are the essential services on campus? We had a puzzle about how to solve a case in law. How do you structure your answer to a case? Cas pratique. I don't know how you say this in English. Like a
case study, I guess.
Case study in law. So it was not just for fun. It's like it is always tied to learning objectives. So they will actually manage to free me, but we don't know the identity of the kidnapper and we don't know the motive. After this, the session appeared to proceed normally. I'm a bit shaken after the kidnapping actually, and I don't tell much about it to the students. We have some guests coming to the class, like Zoe, as you can see on the slide. And what is happening for the student is that during the break, Zoe is sharing documents with the student, and then she asks them to hide it, and she tells them it's sensitive information, they should study it because something weird is happening and something is wrong with me, and I might not be the one I pretend to be. To give you more details, it's a natural resources law. So of course we talk about the question of the protection of environment, conservation, and usually you expect, I guess, in this class, like a lot of stuff about how to protect the environment, how to make sure we don't damage it, even if we exploit it. So you might not expect your professor to be on the wrong side and to work for companies and private companies and to to have a plot to destroy the environment and just get rich, but it's basically what is happening in the class. The professor is working for lobby and he's actually using the student to help him in his mission. So I told you that the student had to work on an appeal for a case. It's because in class, I present the student with a case. There was never an appeal about this case. But in the case, the company lose. But I'm asking the student, help me to see like how the company could have win. And then the next week, and I will show you an example of this, the next week, the student learned from a newspaper, which is a fake one, that the company actually won an appeal. So it's kind of activities like this where it's fake, but the student doesn't know, they don't know. So I'll move on with this. Okay. So during the Pervasive game, as I said, and as Alex said as well, you can combine a lot of activities during the Pervasive game. So we had crossword, we had escape game, like during the kidnapping. You can have trivias, you can have Easter eggs, you can have simulations during the session. You can have interactive story introduced. And
Thomas?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you again, but there is a weird message in the chat right now.
Derek, can you do?
Could you ban this person?
Who is Henri? I don't know, but I can probably kick them out of the.
It's one of the parts.
Zoom call.
Yeah, might as well.
He has no name.
Okay.
Can we maybe? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, Eric.
Sorry for this. So let's go back to this. So to create these activities, like it might look like hard, it might look like time consuming. It's actually very funny. And you have a lot of platform online to help you with this. So basically, if you want to create an escape game, you can use a platform like Breakout Edu, which is, you have to pay. You have to pay, but it's not that much. You have free options, like you can use Google Forms to create an escape room. Of course, you can use Kahoot, for quizzes. Genially is a new platform we discovered with Alex recently, thanks to a colleague. And you can actually create escape rooms. You can create interactive stories with it. Canvas is really good to create fake documents. You have like so many templates, especially free ones, and you can create like perfect fake documents that you can share with the students. So it's really cool. And of course, with a Pervasive game, you can use like mainstream platform like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook to create fake accounts, to create like all type of resources to interact with the student. So it gives like more color, I would say, to the game. So here is one example of La Gazette de l'Énergie. So it was a newsletter I was sending to the student like on a regular basis. Unfortunately, not every week because it was very time consuming, but the plan would be like to have it every week and every week to have a link to the previous class. So the first article you see on the left, it's actually like a news about a case that the company won in appeal. And it's a case that the student worked on. So some student might wonder, oh, did we actually contribute to this? Because it looks like the arguments are the one we kind of share with the professor. So it's also a way to give them retroaction actually. And the rest of the newspaper is more like funny stuff, just to make them feel like, it's serious, but it's not as well. So it's, yeah. And as you can see at the very bottom, there is a competition. There is a game for the student with an address, and the student could actually send an email to this address, and if there are the right answers, they would get a prize. And I had some students doing it, not all of them, but some of the students actually did it and spent time doing it. And first, I didn't tell them here what was the prize actually. I said you can win 1 million of carbon credits, but it's not true actually. It's not what they got, but they got something. But they did it like without knowing what they could actually get. So it was very interesting.
They got like a small participation bonus, right?
Huh?
The students that participated in this contest got.
They didn't know. It's because I was very impressed. So I was like, okay.
All right. So implementation. So let's get into the technical consideration and the logistic. Thomas, can you go to the next slide, please? Oh, Thomas, did you see the message in the chat box? Apparently, there is a is a group of unhappy people.
Okay, to be very transparent with you, we heard about it. We thought they would not be smart enough to do it, and we thought it was secured.
But I think we can be like pretty sure that everything is secured, right, Derek?
No. I mean, I know we had a lot of Zoom bombing, but I think it's kind of over.
Okay, I mean, let's keep going. That will be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first aspect of the logistic, obviously, how many students can be involved? So as Thomas said, we did it with group to 20 to 40 students and or participants. But the thing is, alternate reality games require and are being done with a much larger group of people. I mean, when you do a good alternate reality game on Twitter, you can be involved with thousands of people, you know, so that's something like the number of individual involved in the game can be very, very important, very large. Of course, if you have 20 persons or 2,000 persons, you're gonna have to adapt the real world and technological considerations. And also the more participants you have, the more complex it could be. So if you have a lot of participants, the riddles, the puzzles should not be solvable by one person. So that's very like the collective intelligence that can be used through that kind of games is very important, and that shouldn't be something that you could do on your own. How long can it last? So as we said, we like it over the course of a semester, but you know, it could be over 2 classes or 3 classes. It doesn't have to be continuous as well. That's something that is important. The scenario, the developments in the scenario, they can be, you know, every 2 classes, every 3 classes. So it doesn't have to be every class. Of course, that's something we said already, but preparing and guiding the students, it's very important just to the success of the activity, and it's an ongoing work. Students must be guided through the scenario, you know, by clues, accomplice, actors, whatever you want, but they must be guided through the scenario. They also need to know, or at least imagine what you expect and what you look for. What can be a clue, you know, what can be a lead they can follow to resolve to start a riddle or resolve a puzzle. So that's very important. And the last point is students need to be aware that there is an ongoing scenario for obvious reasons, ethical reasons, and Thomas will discuss this a bit further afterwards. But they also need to know this, so you can have a feedback process, and we'll discuss the feedback process afterwards. Providing development clues and activity on a regular basis is also something to consider as part of the logistic. Defining a timeline of events, very important. You know, in the same way that you are going to create your 12 classes, you're going to have the few elements in each class. So that's pretty much basic, but it's important to know where you're going. It's time consuming, as Thomas said earlier, especially the writing the scenario, the narrative could be challenging. It could be challenging, especially when you have to link it to learning the outcomes. That creates all kind of challenges. So it's time consuming, but it's also extremely stimulating. And I don't think it's more time consuming than creating a class for the first time.
Maybe I will just add, Alex, it's very time consuming, it's true, but it's also very creative. So it's very, very, we kind of lose track of time when we start doing this. And you have so many possibilities. I mean, the risk is to try to do too much. And Alex is actually always trying to to tell me like,
correct.
let's try it first. Don't start creating 12 characters like it was our discussion this morning, and he's right. So it's because you can do so much. So, and it's almost never ending the way you can make it better and better. So the best advice would be like start small and then grow it. It can be frustrating, but year after year, you will just make it better. Our simulation was not what we present on the website, the very first one. We had like almost nothing in terms of immersion. And most of the time, you need a team because the logos we did, it's not us. It's actually my partner who did it. So you need a team. It's very important.
Just to answer your question, Kate, yeah, the video, the session will be shared on YouTube, I believe, Derek, on the CALT YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think that was the intention to share it. Although if people would like not to appear in the video, that's all right too. But maybe just let me know, and I can if you want to intervene and not be on the video, I can pause the recording or something like that.
Awesome, thank you very much. And yeah, just to so Thomas, you just said that yeah, it's important to focus on one type of activity. If you decide to create such a scenario in your class, it's also an occasion to experiment with different type of activities. So this fall, we want to experiment interactive podcast. And we want it's going to be at home. So we want students to go outside and, I mean, of course, in a safe way. But it's on a small class, it's an occasion to experiment a small activity and see how it's working and what's challenging, what's not. So I would say being reasonable is good, but it's also possible to get a bit crazy, I would say. and how, as we said, the scenario doesn't need to evolve every class and in environmental law, but I think it's pretty similar to every discipline law. Cases to solve is very efficient, and we have a lot of materials available. Keep it real, super important. Pervasiveness needs, to be accomplished, needs a bit of needs to be realistic. Even if students are aware that there is an ongoing scenario, they must doubt. And this is very much the key of a pervasive game, is not being sure of what's going on and being curious, of going one step further. Therefore, the storyline must be plausible, credible. I'm not sure if a sci-fi storyline would work for a pervasive game because, it's not very realistic. I think, was it this morning, Thomas, we were discussing of having a pervasive game with dragons. And I was like, I don't know, like everybody pretty much knows that dragons, they don't exist.
Yeah.
But then if the scenario makes you doubt that dragon exists, if the scenario is that good, well, it could become a pervasive game,
And you might not call a pervasive game, then it's a debate between experts, and you might not care about this. But I forgot to give more details about the book I put, like the cover of the book I put when I talked about scenario, which is Teaching as the Art of Staging, which is one of the best books I read in 2019. One of the best books, like in terms of inspiration for teaching. It's so good. And this teacher, basically in his class, I think he has a class in, I don't remember the topic, but during the semester, or part of the semester, the students need to create alien civilizations. And they need to create all the aspects of the alien civilization, the religion, the biology, the environment they are living in. And then there is a confrontation between a group from Earth exploring the universe and the alien civilization. And it's, and the student plays their role very seriously. They know it's fake, but they play it very seriously. And I think we are then in the debate with D&D, is it a pervasive or not? But you can see like the power of the engagement when people play the role.
The key point here, and it's I don't know if I want that on record, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're able to make your student doubt about the scenario, then you're in the, very much in the field of pervasive game. Mm-hmm. So that's the key element. And so to keep it real, the last point is, providing real life elements such as phone numbers, email address, social networks profiles, websites. So all kind of strategy that could be used. So, it's legit, looks legit. Last point is, of course, be ready. You need a few hints in case students get stuck. Accomplice could help you in that task as well. And also plan B is super important. If your students don't see the clue, or if they go somewhere you didn't expect, plan B is always necessary, just so you don't lose track of the scenario and the game.
Yeah, so here's an example of the help of an accomplice you can get, and you will see actually who is the kidnapper in this story. Partager mon écran. So I won't share the whole video because it's a bit long, but at least the beginning.
Certains d'entre vous auraient pu s'attendre à ce que nous parlions des OGM, qui est un sujet qui est abondamment débattu, énormément discuté, controversé, vous diront certains. Mais si vous voulez mon opinion, je trouve que c'est un sujet qui est beaucoup trop traité. Je trouve par ailleurs qu'au Canada, les choses sont extrêmement claires. Les règles ne sont pas confuses du tout. L'information est très facilement accessible de manière la plus transparente possible et le débat est extrêmement apaisé. Je ne vois donc aucune raison aujourd'hui de vous parler, ne serait-ce qu'une seconde, de la problématique des OGM. Vraiment aucune.
Ok, j'espère que vous me recevez. Vous me reconnaissez sûrement comme ça. Et vous me reconnaissez aussi sûrement comme ça. C'est Zoé, bien sûr. Des yeux verts comme ça s'oublie pas. Et j'ai piraté la présentation de votre professeur de manière hygiénique. C'est super important en ce moment. Revenons aux choses sérieuses. Écoutez, aujourd'hui, votre professeur, il voulait vous parler d'agriculture. Mais il se passe des choses très importantes au Canada aujourd'hui en matière d'OGM. Et j'ai une mission très importante à vous confier. Il faut que vous m'écoutiez. Mais bien sûr, avant de vous confier cette mission, j'ai besoin de savoir que je peux vous faire confiance.
Ok. So here Zoe is giving the student a mission actually, and she's hacking my class, and she's like, I told the student we won't talk about GMO, but actually the class was about GMO, and so they had to follow like the clues we'll share this again. They had to follow a clue and some mission task about GMO.
So if I may add something real quick, this class was also created just when we had to go to online teaching. So I guess it's another argument for game-based learning and pervasive games. It's manageable to do online. There are all kind of tools and it's doable.
Yeah, and it's very easy. Huh? All the animation you see, it's all PowerPoint. It's actually Alex who did all of this. It's a bit annoying, I would say, with PowerPoint, but it's very possible to do it. So you might need accomplice, but what I would say is that Zoe is a PhD candidate at University of Ottawa, so she's working with us like since the beginning almost as well on this, and she's very nice to participate. But you need help, allies. But like sometime, because at some point I told Zoe, okay, Zoe, you give the mission to the student. I'm not involved because I'm not supposed to know that you are hacking my account. So you will need to interact with them. But after considering it, and because it's hard for her, because each time a student will write to her, she was writing to me and I need to tell her what to say basically. But after a while I was like, oh, you know what, Zoe, I will create you a fake address and I will play your role. And it's actually something you can do very easily. You just create characters, and if it's online, you can play many roles, not too many. It's another debate we had with Alex this morning, but you can play the role you want and just stick to your character. Some of the students last session, they told me like, they keep talking to the professor. I was like, you are not talking to your professor, you are talking to Zoe. Why? Or they were writing to me, asking me clues. I was like, what are you talking about? It's not, GMO are not part of the class. Why are you asking me this? So keep playing the role. And this was very hard because then you cannot help them as a professor. And I know that I was supposed to be the bad guy. So it's kind of hard because you cannot tell them before the end. So it's, anyway. Yeah, the feedback, very interesting, the feedback. You can actually give, because we need to give them feedback, but it's also like a pervasive game. So it's not, it's still a game. So I cannot break the game, but I can always give feedback as part of the scenario. So the newspaper, newsletter I was sending them, it's actually, it was part of the scenario, but you add element of feedbacks. So at the end of the GMO session, they would send something to Zoe, and Zoe was sending them a document I prepared for her, where you had all the answer to the cases, but like organized as as part of the scenario. So it was, yeah, a good way to do it, I guess. And okay. Oh, attends, ethics. Sorry, I didn't do the ethics. Yeah, yeah, the ethics. It's very important because it's something. When we were at the conference, I mentioned serious play. We didn't hear a lot of thinking about the ethics of using this kind of activities in class and in education. And we had some choices to make, and we had some ethical questions coming up. Because, you know, as we said, in this game, you intentionally blur the line between fiction and reality. So what is appropriate and what is not? In our case, we use the kidnapping as a first event, and we ask ourselves, is there any student that will call the police or the security service on campus and ask? So it has to be real, but at some point, the student needs to understand it might be a joke as well. And you know, I had Alex in the class, so I knew that he would actually tell them, like, guys, okay, let's try to solve it first before we call the police, maybe. And so, but it's something you have to have in mind. Zoe wanted to use a knife. You know, when she's threatening me with a bottle, we said, no, it's too dangerous, Zoe. You don't use the knife, you use a bottle of water. So it's something you need to discuss, because it might appear during the game. And also, if some of the students get too much engaged into the game, you need to have like a process to try to assess these issues, because if they get too into the game, it can get dangerous actually. And yeah, I could tell you a story actually about a colleague of the guy I mentioned who wrote the book Teaching at the Art of Staging. In his class, he's actually organizing a fake strike. So the students are representing different groups, and during the session, they're organizing a strike on campus. And so he had to put in place some process to avoid any case of violence, to avoid like people to get violent to each other. So basically, he was playing a policeman, for instance, and he explains the student and he gives them rules like, okay, if I have my hat, I'm the policeman and you need to listen to me. If I take off my hat, I'm your professor, and then it's over. The game is over and you stop what you are doing right now. So we have ways to do it, but you have to be careful of this as far as you try to blur the line between fiction and reality. Okay, so some of the lessons learned from this experience, definitely more engagement from the student in class. During the kidnapping and the escape room, students are running everywhere. They try to solve the puzzle, they collaborate. It's very good to have some bonding between them. So it's working very well. It could also work very well online. I have made it online and I have seen like on forums how they collaborate to solve the puzzles. So it's something that is very possible. Second point, oh, Alex.
What's going on, Thomas?
I don't know.
Do you have maybe you have like issues with your internet connection?
Well, it's a MacBook Air, so it's possible it's my MacBook.
Okay. Well, it seems to be working fine.
Okay. So definitely more smile on the student face. And you know, I just talked about engagement, but some of the students completed all the activities, including the facultative ones. So it was really nice to see this. And of course, we want all of them to do it, but it's good to see that some of them were doing it. So last point.
What's going on, Thomas? What's going on? Thomas, tell me it's a joke.
No, it's blocked, Alex. I cannot.
You're joking me, right?
No,
You're serious? But what are you supposed to do?
don't know. I don't know.
Can you do something?
No, I'm trying to click. It's not working.
Oh, let me check. I got a notification from a firewall. It seems that something is wrong indeed. Give me a few seconds.
No, I'm trying to click on the eyes, the nose.
That's not good. That's clearly not good. Okay, it seems like I have a suspicious file on my computer. Should I try to open it?
I mean, let me try one more time. No, I cannot even escape. I keep take off power.
Okay.
Okay, but try to open it.
Do I go for it?
Yeah, go.
Okay, let me try. There you go. Is it?
Oh, it's not
Is
there.
it working?
No.
What's going on? Do you think you could recover our tracks? Actually, try to do something silly and delete the wrong file. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. What do we do, Thomas? Maybe.
Don't know.
Okay, I have access to the file, so maybe I can show you what I see right now.
Okay. Show us what you have.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see something?
Yeah. Okay.
So I have 5 Morse code. Maybe it's Morse code.
Where? Morse code everywhere. You always look for Morse code.
Okay, so apparently there is one file that we should delete, but which one is it?
I don't know. How can we know? Someone mentioned a hack before.
We love lecture. Was it Henri from earlier? Yeah, Bruno, you said you saw something as well, right? I have no clue what's going on.
What did he mention? We love lecture.
We love lecture. What's that?
Wait, I will try to click on the.
We can look for clues on the Twitter account. What Twitter account? The one that was sent earlier?
Let me check, Alex. Let me go there. Oh.
What's going on, Thomas?
Some of the students didn't like the class, despite the 2 very nice testimonials we had. Okay.
What's going on?
Here's a survey.
There's a survey. Okay, so what do they say which file we should delete? Is there any information about that?
I don't know. Wait. Who sent it? Who sent us information about the Twitter?
It's Henry. I don't know who Henry.
No,
Bruno, do you have a bit more information regarding did you see anything that could help? Maybe.
I can give Bruno a chance to speak.
I'm still looking at the Twitter account to see. It was just Henry posted the Twitter link. I saw the survey, and just to coming back, I mentioned the Morse code because it seemed to me that the hacking page, there was a skull-like figure which seemed to be with dots and lines, just like Morse code as well. So that's why I mentioned this. It could, if decrypted, it could give us the name of a file potentially.
Yeah, but it's stuck. The system is like stuck. I can come back to the presentation, Alex, but I think it's the only place I can go back is the one with their message.
Yeah.
It's not working actually. Is there another way of finding the name?
Is there anything else on the Twitter maybe? It seems like they are discussing several programs, hacking programs on the Twitter account.
Okay, which one? Okay, it seems they used one of them only.
So let me see. Fun to say. Oh yeah, those are the same name.
Which one should we take? They said
in the comments.
we have only one chance, Alex, huh?
Did you see something, Adrien?
Attends, I can ask Adrien. I can put him on. Sorry. Whoops. Adrien.
The comments. Okay.
Did you unmute me?
C'est bon.
Yeah, they're discussing about the options in the
comments.
In like there are surveys that to choose which software would be best. Clearly, there's some that they don't like because they would be too easy to track. Like Sal1X apparently is way too easy to track, so they gave up on that.
Okay.
But there are a couple of options they seem to approve. Some are free, so probably if it's your students, I'm not sure if they got a job already. So let's go with the free options.
The fees are very high in Ottawa. So.
Which one is the free option?
The free option is wait, where is it? Fun Society is free.
Yeah. Okay. So should we try this one?
Do we have only one try?
I guess we're.
I don't know.
How many computers have you got, Thomas? Okay.
Well, I mean,
this is a working one. This is a work one.
Okay, we'll see with Ottawa then to get you a new one if that doesn't work. So I suggest we try Fun Society then.
Okay, well let's try Fun Society. Okay, let's go. 1, 2.
Oh.
Okay, that's good.
Oh.
Is it back?
It looks like it's back.
It's back. That's back. Good.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Good.
Well, thank you for your help.
I guess it was the right one. Oof. Good. I was hesitating between two actually. Okay, well, let's finish because what time is it? Oh, okay. Let's finish. So, yes. So I just talked about engagement and very easy to adapt online. There is so many platforms we can use. So maybe now, Alex, you can conclude.
Yeah. So a bit of debriefing is needed. So as we said a few times, the key element is what is it that you try to accomplish by using a pervasive game? What are the learning outcomes that you want to aim for, and what do you want your student to learn? What skills you want them to acquire? And that's should really be what drives the use of game-based learning and pervasive games. So let's take this presentation as an example. So our first goal was for you to understand that expecting the unexpected is absolutely fundamental, is key to the success. So the first 2 videos, they were cringe. We're sorry about that. It was actually videos, I don't know, did you see the clues in the background? Yeah? So that we wanted to use videos where if you're not ready, if you're not prepared to see such clues, you don't necessarily see them. It's actually 2 students that work with us on those projects. Hopefully they liked it, but everything was made up. So they were in the background. There was 2 clues, and it was actually the at We Love Lectures, so the Twitter account.
And we could make it more. You can make it more subtle if when the students are prepared, but when they are not, it might not be that obvious.
Yeah. So a few of you went on the Twitter account, but clearly, Bruno, you went straight away on the Twitter account. So that was very good. Yeah. So that's something, some people would do it, some other people won't do it. So that's, if you are prepared for that kind of clues and that kind of gaming element, then, it would be easier for students to go see what's going on and just actually start the game. And this is why there is a cultural learning curve, in the sense that curriculums needs to be adapted and students need to be prepared to do that kind of activities. So the second element for us was that technology is an asset. So we did a lot of DIY. It's not it's not that challenging. I mean, you could have very fancy equipment, very fancy softwares, but you don't need much to do it. You can craft it yourself, low budget. The Twitter was actually very painful to create a few Twitter accounts from one person. So we would recommend to go for a fake Twitter thread that might be easier to handle. Maybe Thomas, you want very quick to...
Yeah, because I just discovered back in the day it was not that secure, but right now you cannot have like you cannot create an unlimited number of Twitter accounts, because they will ask you for a phone number to verify it. So I could do some with my phone, some with my partner phone, some with Alex, to get like to 7 or 8 Twitter accounts. But at the same time, now we have the accounts, we have the access code and stuff, and we can just adapt it and we can create new cases. So it's a bit difficult and annoying when you start doing it, but then it's really nice and it's very real, and it's really cool, because a fake one, yeah.
But the thing also is Twitter has a weird algorithm, so it doesn't put all the messages in the chronological order. I don't know how it does that, but it doesn't do it. So it could create some confusion as well, like for the student participant to follow the conversation.
Facebook is really easy to create a group, to create a group and stuff like this. So, and maybe just Alex to add on the low budget, we would even recommend to start always with a low budget when you create a game, and to start doing it with very few things, and really start with paper, because you don't need to go wild and to go like technology and stuff, because you don't even know if the game is good. So, and it's a lesson we learned from people working in this field, actually as professionals. They told us you need to make a prototype very fast and to test it and to see if it's fun and if it's working. And then you just develop it and you make the visual and the visual around it. But first, you need a prototype to test it. So start with paper, and then you will build on this.
Maybe we can go to next slide. So scenario is very important as well. Here we wanted to have something that's, that of course linked digital world to real world. We needed something that was credible, not too obvious, not too discreet. So it was challenging, but we came up with the idea of a unhappy group of students that really want to save lectures, whatever it takes. And it's actually our dear friend Henry that came up with the idea of the angry students. Another point that is important when it comes to that kind of scenario, maybe make sure that students and participants never really know when it's over. That's something that could add a bit of spices to the activity. The be ready, once again, was something important for us to share with you. So first, plan A was if we didn't have any indications from you regarding the hacking situation. Plan B, well, that's the other way around, but we had a plan A and a plan B in case we were told that hacking was potential and in case nobody told us. Sometimes you can also have the illusion of a choice. Thomas, do you want to reveal the trick here?
There's a trick here? Actually, because there is no, basically there is no bad answer. We would have told you after if it was a bad answer. It was the right answer. It was Fun Society, the right one. But if it was not, it's the same. I mean, we just click and it's just going up and you think it was a good one. And then we might tell you it's not. And so it's, and in the same with interactive stories, you can tell them you can go A or B, but it goes back to the same line. And it's actually a very common trick for stories and for video games, because if you start doing too many lines, it's impossible to follow and to create all of them. So even when you have several endings in video games, during the game, you might have like 3 big branchings and that's it, because otherwise it's too much work. And of course it would be fun to have like all the branchings, but if people don't see it, it's pointless. So you need to keep it like, and it's, if you play a game like Phoenix Wright Attorney, it's an old Nintendo game, but you can still play it today. I played the game and at some point I was like, is it a real choice I made? No, it's only the same story. I do choices, but the answer might be slightly different, but the outcome is exactly the same. And I'm like, oh, it's annoying, but it's working. It's working. I'm into it. I enjoy the story. I'm learning. It's interesting. So it's like magic, Adrien. It's the same.
Well, the thing is, you know, if you don't know that there is a trick, you don't necessarily feel cheated. So that's also the option here. So yeah, plan A, plan B is very important, and you can play with the scenario so you're not in a situation that you can't handle. And the last point that was very important to us is the debriefing, the feedback, what we are actually doing right now. Because sometimes one of the challenges, you know, students are going to get engaged. They are going to be motivated by the activity itself, but sometimes you need to come back on the activity, discuss it, so they really, you know, it's a metacognitive process. So they really understand what they learned, which skill they acquired, and also can give some very interesting material to discuss through the different classes over the semester. So feedback is very important. In addition to the fact that students must know that the scenario is going on, it's important to discuss what happened during an activity of this type.
And maybe to give you like the end of the story. So during the semester, I was working with big companies. I was like making money with the advice of the students, using them, exploiting them to find new ways to make money, basically. Zoe is kidnapped me because I'm doing this, and she's trying to expose me to the university. So she needs a student to hack my account and to hack my computer, and she find a door to get into it. But I suspected the student would do this, so I trap them, and then they have to solve some puzzles to get away with the files and send it to Zoe so she can expose me. So here was a final twist, because if it's a semester long, you need at some point some twist in your story. It cannot be always the same, otherwise it will be boring for the student. And so I think we are done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess we have a few minutes for questions or discussions. Thomas, I don't know if you can give access to...
I'll try to give it to everybody.
We have a question from Bruno.
Attends, je pense que c'est bon. Ouais.
Can I just jump in with the question? Thank you very much for the conference. It was great. My question is regarding assessment. So I'm just curious, are your exams or assessment at the end of the semester like a traditional exam? Do you have participation points for the Pervasive game during the semester? And how do you go about doing assessment with a Pervasive game in your course?
A very good question. Very good question. This semester, Alex, if I'm not wrong, we had a simulation with your class, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, there was some participation point for simulation during the class. I would say that the simulation was not integrated very well with the Pervasive game. It was still the first version, so at some point I felt it was a bit disconnected. But evaluation is not my. I should not say this is recorded. I need to work on my skills for evaluations. But yeah, it should be very integrated. For the next semester, sorry, to answer your question, for the next semester, we have the same kind of game, a new scenario, but yes, they will have participation points for their participation during the game. And it will be based on the forum participation, things like this. And the final exam will be a final quest. And then what they will give me at the end, they will get evaluated on this.
If I may add on this one, unfortunately we have less flexibility when it comes to evaluation, compared to what it is when you teach. And the important point is to have your learning outcomes aligned with the teaching method, and that what you propose as an evaluation actually answers and reflect those two elements. So I feel like it would be manageable to get, even if it's a traditional take-home exam at the end of the semester if what you require from your students in these exams reflect what they've been working through, like during the Pervasive game. So the two at some point could be disconnected. But one thing we were thinking about with Thomas was using escape games as a way of evaluating the students, because escape games, it's difficult to have an escape game that is hands-on. It's more like you need to use the knowledge and the skills you already have to go through the different puzzles. So that could be something very interesting. I don't know if that would be accepted by the administration to have an escape game as a final exam, but it could be a way of, you know, studying for the final exam. Yeah, Adrien?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. Like this is very inspiring. There's a there's a whole world out there, and I think you did a very fine job of showing it bits by bits, and also not making it too intimidating. Like I think I get out of this with some ideas of where I could start if I wanted to go down that road, and not imagine a 12-week scenario from the get-go. So that's kudos to that. I was wondering about the reproducibility element. If you had to do it year after year, do students tell each other what the answer would be? Like, for example, if you did the kidnapping thing 2 years in a row, was there less of a surprise element the second year, or?
We don't know, because we didn't try. It was the first year. I guess there would still, because it's like when you do an escape room, you are surprised and you are engaged because it's a game. So I guess they would still be engaged, even if they wouldn't know that it's fake. I would probably twist the story a bit, or maybe I would have like 3 stories, let's say, and then 1 year, second year, third year, and then I will go back to the first one. But right now we just like create new things because we are not bored. We would be bored to do the same. So, but it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, and I would say that the other option is to have your students sign a non-disclosure agreement, but that's maybe a bit challenging, right? But yeah,
can be part of the game, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, you like one option is simply to ask them not to talk too much about the activities themselves. Maybe talk about the spirit of the class, but to keep it to themselves. And I don't think they would share too much. But yeah, one of the thing we're talking about with Thomas is, can we actually build on the previous scenarios, or should we each time recreate a totally different scenario? You know, that's something we don't know yet. So.
And actually, when you started your question, Adrien, I felt like you were going to ask about, you know, all the material you create, and especially the videos and stuff. And it's true, it's something to be very careful about, because it's time. It's funny, but it's a lot of time, especially when you make the subtitles, when you make it very accessible and you're careful about this. It can be very time consuming. So you have to be careful of the way you make it. So not to mention dates. To make it possible to reuse. The document on Canva, it's not that hard. You can change the date. The Twitter took me 10 minutes this morning to change it, because we used it in a previous conference as well. So it's not that hard, but you need to be careful, because if you make it too accurate and detailed, you might need to, yeah. And sometimes you want to make peace with some elements. The date on the Twitter, if you look at it closely, you will see it was created exactly at the same time. So it's not very real, but I mean, I cannot spend 2 weeks to, I mean, I could. I could.
I guess the time is up now.
I think so. Yeah, officially we're supposed to end at 3:30. And I think we're losing some people.
Henri is here, and Henri has no camera. Maybe he can have a camera to show his face.
Yeah, I think Henri has to go.
Henri has to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas and Alexandre. I'd like to thank both of you on behalf of CULT for organizing a very original and stimulating session.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
So,
And we are still open to discuss with anybody who wants to get on this road. It will be with pleasure, and it's not like maybe not to do this, but to do something else. Again, we will share the cookbook information. We have colleagues doing crossword. We have colleagues doing speed runs, other kind of activities, and it's really fascinating. And I think it's a really nice road to try for legal education. In law, we are so behind other disciplines in this field, so it's really good, and the students love it. They love it. It's so different. Anyway.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Good weekend as well.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.